We're in the middle of this quiet but massive revolution. It's the story of how AI assistants are growing up, going from these kind of clumsy, forgetful interns into actual resourceful teammates. Let's dive into how that's happening. So, have you ever felt like you're just repeating yourself over and over again to your AI? You know the feeling, right? You're explaining the same context, the same rules for every single task. It's like Groundhog Day. Well, it turns out there's a really good technical reason for that, and it all goes back to the old way we used to build AI. In the early days, if you wanted an AI to do anything useful, you had to get good at what we call prompt engineering. You literally had to write these incredibly long, detailed step-by-step instructions inside every single prompt. Imagine hiring an intern, and every time you give them a new task, you have to re-explain the entire history of the company and all of its procedures. It was just laborious and totally didn't scale. And here's the real kicker. The more stuff you packed into that prompt, the worse the AI would often perform. It's a thing called context dilution. Basically, the model's attention gets spread too thin, it starts to lose focus, and sometimes it just completely ignores your most important instructions. It's that classic less is more problem, but we were forced to give it more. And that limitation, well, it really set the stage for a much-needed change. Okay, so the first big breakthrough was this idea of a universal toolbox. The thinking was pretty simple. Instead of telling the AI how to use a tool every single time, what if we could just plug the tools directly into the AI using some kind of standard connection? And that solution is something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. The best way to think about it is exactly what's on the screen here. It's like a USB-C port for AI. It's this open standard, this one universal way to plug any tool, a database, an API, your files, into any AI that supports it. Super clever. For any big organization, this was an absolute game changer. All of a sudden, you could centrally control which tools the AI could even access. You could audit every time a tool was used, and because it was an open standard, you weren't locked into one AI company. You could build one connector for your internal database, and boom, it could work with models from Anthropic, OpenAI, whoever. But a pretty serious flaw started to show up. This whole universal toolbox idea was great, but what happens when you have hundreds or maybe even thousands of tools you want the AI to have access to? Well, this is what happens. You get this massive overhead problem. See, just to know what tools were even available, the AI had to read a description of every single one right at the start of the conversation. A complex server could eat up tens of thousands of tokens, that's the AI's working memory, before you even asked a question. The toolbox was just so heavy the AI could barely lift it to do any actual work. So yeah, that token overhead problem needed a much more elegant solution. And that's where Anthropic's next big idea comes in, moving from that heavy all-at-once toolbox to a much smarter on-demand library. The core innovation here is a concept called progressive disclosure. So instead of loading every instruction for every tool all at once, the AI loads information in layers, only revealing more detail when it's actually relevant to what you're asking it to do. A great analogy is to think of it like a shelf full of guidebooks. The AI doesn't have to carry them all around. It just needs to know their titles. Let's break down how this actually works. At the first level, the AI just scans the metadata, basically the title on the spine of the book for every available skill. Then, if your request matches a title, it moves to level 2 and opens the book, reading the detailed instructions for that one specific skill. And only if those instructions point to something like a code snippet or a template does it go to level 3 and access those resources. It's just incredibly efficient. So, this is the really crucial point, this big shift in philosophy. The old way, MCP, was all about describing everything up front. The AI had to carry the weight of every single tool, all the time. The new way, with skills, is all about providing context on demand. It lets the AI just pull the right guidebook off the shelf exactly when it needs it. And the difference in the cost? It's just staggering. The old way could burn through thousands of tokens before you even typed a single word. The new skills approach? It uses just 30 to 50 tokens per skill, just to list its title. And the result is the AI's working memory stays clear, it stays focused, and it's ready for your actual request. Now, you should know this isn't just one company's idea. What we're actually seeing is an industry-wide race. This whole shift towards smarter context management, it's happening everywhere. All the big players are tackling this exact same problem. Anthropic calls it agent skills. OpenAI calls it function calling. Microsoft Copilot Actions, Google, Gemini tools. They've all got different names for sure, but they all share the same goal: making AI assistants way more capable by being way smarter about how they access tools and information.
Okay, so we've walked through the tech evolution, but what does this all actually mean in the real world? Let's connect the theory to reality because this is where it gets really interesting. This is the moment right now that AI assistants stop being just clever novelties and start becoming real professional tools. They're becoming secure enough to handle sensitive information, efficient enough to save you a ton of time, and governable enough that big organizations can actually deploy them responsibly. And this isn't just some abstract idea. A pilot program in the UK government actually found that using these new, smarter AI assistants saved each employee an average of 26 minutes every single day. I mean, just think about that and scale it across a whole organization. The impact is absolutely immense.
And this value really comes from a few key areas. The security is way better because tool access is tightly controlled. Governance improves because you can log and audit every single time a tool is used. Efficiency just skyrockets as you automate all those repetitive tasks. And you get these really strong audit trails, so you can always go back and trace an AI's actions to see exactly what it did and why. This whole evolution has been just incredible to watch, but honestly, it feels like it's just the beginning. So where is all of this heading next? If there's one single thing to take away from this whole journey, it's this shift from all at once to just in time. What we've learned is that the secret to a really powerful AI assistant isn't just about giving it more knowledge. It's about giving it the right knowledge at precisely the right moment. And this is where things get really, really interesting. The next step, which Anthropic is already hinting at, is to enable these AIs to start creating their own skills. Can you imagine an AI watching you do a repetitive task and just piping up, hey, I could create a skill for that, and then it just does it for you automatically? And that just leaves us with this one kind of mind-blowing question, doesn't it? We've gone from being the AI's teacher, painstakingly writing out every little instruction, to becoming its librarian, just curating its collection of knowledge. So what happens when the AI doesn't need a librarian anymore because it can simply teach itself?